Imagine you're born to the most powerful empire on Earth, an empire stretching across 3 continents, ruling around 30 million people and over 5 million square kilometers of land at its own peak. This is the Ottoman Empire, and depending on where you stand within it, your life could be a nightmare or a golden throne. Today we're climbing every rung of the Ottoman social ladder, from the people who owned nothing to the one man who owned it all. This is your life at every level of the Ottoman Empire. Let's start at the bottom. You are a slave of the Sultan. But slave in the Ottoman world doesn't always mean what you'd expect. If you're a boy taken under the devshirme, the child levy, you were born to Christian parents in the Balkans, taken from your family between the ages of roughly 7 and 20, converted to Islam and trained. It sounds cruel, and it was. But it also opened a door that existed almost nowhere else. As a you belonged to the Sultan, and that meant you could rise. Many Grand Viziers, generals, and governors started exactly like this. If you were a girl sold into the imperial harem, your path was different. You'd enter as a novice and a semi, and most women spent their lives as carrier, servants cleaning corridors, cooking, laundering silk, and never once meeting the Sultan. But a few climbed, to Kalfa, to Gozde, the noticed one, and a handful reached the very top. Because here, a slave could become the most powerful person in the empire. Step up one rung, you are Reaya, the flock, the common people. Most likely you're a farmer. Your life follows the seasons and the tax collector. If you're Muslim, you owe the usher, a tithe, roughly 1/10 of your harvest. If you're Christian or Jewish, you're a dhimmi, a protected non-Muslim, and you pay the sayye, a poll tax, in exchange for exemption from military service and the right to live by your own faith under your community, the millet. Your village is tied to a tamar, a land grant held by a cavalryman, a sipahi, who collects your taxes in return for showing up to war with horse and arms. You'll likely never leave your valley. You'll marry, raise children who farm the same soil, and die within a few miles of where you were born. It's a hard life, but a stable one. The empire doesn't want to crush you, it wants you productive. As long as you pay and stay quiet, the Ottoman world mostly leaves you alone. Climb to the city. You're now an artisan or a merchant in the bazaar, and here you belong to a guild, an esnaf. Guilds run almost everything in an Ottoman town. They set prices, control quality, train apprentices, and even supply labor to the government. You start young as an apprentice, learning at the elbow of a master, work your way up to journeyman, and one day maybe master of your own shop. The bazaar is your whole world, a maze of stone lanes shaded by vaulted roofs, thick with the smell of leather, copper, coffee, and spice. If you trade long distance, you might grow rich. Ottoman merchants connected Istanbul to Cairo, Aleppo, Venice, and beyond. But wealth comes with limits. The state watches prices closely to prevent shortages and unrest. Hoard grain or cheat a customer, and the Kado, the judge, will hear about it. Your reputation, your guild, and your market stall are everything. Lose them, and you lose your place in the city. Now you're a Janissary. And this is where your life changes completely. You began as a devshirme boy, torn from a Christian village. But inside the palace schools, you learned Turkish, the Quran, mathematics, archery, and tactics. You were tested, sorted by ability, and the sharpest of you joined the Janissary Corps, the elite infantry of the empire. You're a slave of the Sultan, yes, but you're also salaried, uniformed, and feared. Under Suleyman the Magnificent, there were about 30,000 of you. By the late 1600s, the corps would swell to over 60,000. You march in step, you pray together, you eat from a shared cauldron, and your regiment is named after that cookpot. Your commander is even called the head soup maker. You're forbidden to marry, at least early on, so your loyalty belongs entirely to the Sultan. And that loyalty is the point. The Janissaries have no family ties, no tribal faction, only the throne, which makes you the most reliable blade in the empire. It also makes you dangerous. One day the course will realize that power and turn those blades on the sultans themselves. Step out of the army and into the robe. You are a member of the Ulema, the class of religious scholars, judges, and teachers. After years studying Islamic law, you might become a qadu, a judge, governing a town, and your authority is enormous. You don't just settle disputes over debts and divorce. You supervise the markets, inspect weights and measures, oversee orphans' property, and act as the local arm of the state itself. The Ulema are one of the few groups the Sultan genuinely respects because your legitimacy comes from the law, not from him. You're educated, respected, paid from religious endowments, and largely untouchable. In a society built on religion, you are its interpreter. Want to push further? Climb to Mufti, and then maybe to the very top of the scholars, the Sheikh al-Islam, whose legal opinion can even legitimize or block a sultan's decree. Now you stand one step from the summit. You are the Grand Vizier, the Sadrazam, the absolute deputy of the Sultan. On days the Sultan withdraws from public business, you chair the Imperial Council, the Divan, in a chamber inside Topkapi Palace. You hear petitions, appoint governors, command armies, and run the daily machinery of an empire spanning 3 continents. Your seal can move armies. Your word can end careers. You may have arrived here through the Devshirm yourself, a Christian village boy who climbed the palace ladder on pure ability. But the air up here is thin and cold. The Sultan's favor is everything. One mistake, one rival's whisper, and the executioner's silent summons arrives. Sometimes you're found dead before you even knew you'd fallen. Many Grand Viziers met exactly that end. You govern millions, command the second greatest power in the empire, and sleep with one eye open, because the only man above you can take it all in an instant. The top of the ladder. You are the Sultan. Your titles stack like a crown. Padishah, Caliph of Islam, Shadow of God on earth. You rule at the empire's height around 30 million people across more than 5 million square kilometers, from the gates of Vienna to the holy cities of Arabia, from the Balkans to the edge of the Sahara. You live in Topkapi Palace, perched above the Bosphorus, where every corridor, every eunuch, every concubine exists to serve your dynasty. Your harem is not just pleasure. It's a machine for producing heirs and securing loyalty. For centuries, your consorts were enslaved women raised inside the palace, chosen so no noble family could challenge you. And for over 100 years, the era historians call the Sultanate of Women, mothers and consorts like Hurrem and Kosim didn't just advise the throne, they ruled through it. Your power is absolute. Your succession is brutal. For generations, a new sultan would execute his own brothers to prevent civil war. You command the largest army, the grandest treasury, the widest dominion of your age. And yet, you sit on a golden throne, knowing every man below you is scheming for it. This is the summit, and the view is lonely. So that's your life, at every level of the Ottoman Empire. A peasant who never left the valley. A slave who became vizier. A janissary who became kingmaker. A sultan who could own the world and trust no one. The genius of this empire wasn't conquest alone. It was a system that could take a farmer's son or a kidnapped Upo and raise him to the very top. Over 5 million square kilometers, around 30 million people, one ladder and 1,000 ways to climb it or fall. If you want to live another life in another empire, next week, subscribe. I'll see you on the next rung.